Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Colton Ryan of the brand new Broadway musical New York, New York, as well as a great featured role on Poker Face. And Colton, you know, most of the songs you're singing through in this show are from the great Kander and Ebb.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, were classics recorded by other people. They're known through other mediums. How do you relate to that? How do you kind of find your own way into something that already has a life?
Very easy. Because I'm a nerd first. So to know that I know John now is kind of a wild thing to even still sort of reconcile with. But a lot of these songs, I'll put it this way. So like there are originals in the piece. There are some that are
Sure.
referenced from the film. It's not like a third, and a third, but it's split up like, yeah, those, the film, and then a couple trunk songs and or specialty songs,
Hmm.
mainly from like the Liza catalog, right? And to me, if when I first read the script, right, I couldn't believe the way they landed this plane. But when it got to the moment where I get to, as you saw, I get to sing a quiet thing. Um, if aliens came down and held us at gunpoint and said like, if you get one shot to tell us what Kander and Ebb is, I would present them Flora and the Red Menace, a quiet thing, So like, to me, that is the Rosetta Stone for all Kander and Ebb songs. So I find it not difficult at all, just because from my nerd perspective, I'm just elated that I'm even associated with any of these songs, especially that one. Or but some of them are kind of eerie in the way that they sit in the show, like to piggyback off that, like Sorry I Asked, right? That comes a little later in the act. Is I actually, as a nerd, I didn't know that one, surprisingly enough. And I could have sworn it was built around this moment. And when I finally heard it, the live recording of Liza doing it, knowing that actually it doesn't have context, it's for a specialty act, and yet there's so much drama. Is he handsome? I was like, or is she handsome or pretty? Or they futz with it a little, but to know that that was actually something that existed outside of this was it's presented so well in the show that it was honestly shocking.
So did you're talking about, did you get to pick John's brain at all then? And what was your kind of best nerdiest question to him?
I have his phone number. Can you believe? um, I still pick his brain. I saw him last night. Actually, it was the first time I'd seen the show in a minute. And it's still a good emotional talking about it. Honestly, this man is given so much to this art form I love. So really, anything he speaks is sort of is Bible for me now. But there's what I've been really proud and brilliantly surprised by is actually how much of a true collaborator he is, and how much he actually asks me what my thoughts are on certain things. And I there's a couple times that he's come up and told me, just whispered in my ear what the song was about in just a sentence. And those moments are so true and just kind of still ring in my ear, even when I'm out there. Um, and I think that's really the thing I take away from being around him, is he is a guy who's relentlessly in pursuit of truth, which is just in an art form where people just stop what they're doing and start singing, is actually a kind of a radical act. And I think it's part of the reason why they have maintained for so long, and honestly, at 96 years old, to be able to, in this modern world, to be able to create something brand spanking new that actually feels incredibly electric and vital. I think it's all just goes back to that truth, and he's just his relentless pursuit of it. I will say on that, like the best piece of advice I ever got from him had nothing to do with the show or anything like that. But he reminds me so much of my grandfather, who's no longer with us. And so I have this special connection with him anyway, but in a sort of eerie way, the same revelation I kind of had when I lost my grandfather, he spoke to words to me. He spoke it to power of like the thing he'll tell you point blank. If you ever ask him, like, what's it all about, man? Is he always says with just the most peaceful, contented response. He always says, a life in the theater is the best and most lucky life you could live. And it's like, inside you feel that, and you hope that's true. That cliche is a little cliche, but he's lived it. It's just that he is it personified, and the fact that he still believes it. Because I know a lot of people at that age, or I don't know a lot of people at that. I'm not hanging out with the bingo crowd, but I do know enough, and I've never seen someone so contented, and so you just believe it.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of his songs, you mentioned a quiet thing, and your voice fits, I think, this period so well.
Thank
And
you.
this song, you mentioned how it was recontextualized now, and I feel like must be a challenge because you almost have to whisper sing it in places, but it has to fill up the St. James.
Right.
So how do you vocally approach that number?
Well, I mean, vocally, I thank you. I do feel like there is a portion of my soul that is dedicated completely to this kind of singing, or at least it's the way I kind of, it was my in with my family, like when I was starting to sing, I really caught their response with when it was Frank. And then I'd get so bummed because I didn't have a low voice, so I couldn't sing Frank songs. And then finally I found Mel Torme, and I was like, oh, thank God, I can do it. There's someone who sounds like that. And so all those inspirations are kind of, Mel and Chet Baker and all that, like they're all kind of, and Frank, of course, is like because of the song and all that. I'm kind of channeling them more than anything. It's not really like, it's not the whole portfolio. It's not the whole story of I mean, as you can probably tell from my other things, it's actually kind of, I think it surprised a lot of people, frankly, because usually I'm singing like sad boy pop from my CV. And so thank you. But it's been lovely because it's also sort of this like, the whole thing is this return to form. The whole musical is this big, unapologetic, like return to what makes musical theater specifically, so timeless and classic. And in that same, as a lot of things that are timeless, they also sort of aptly become timely always, and I feel that way about that song in particular. It's sort of like a mission for me because I love music, as you hear me sing a lot in the show, and I always am kind of obsessed with sort of like how sound is another storytelling kind of sort of craft in itself. And the idea that like a couple blocks from here, Billie Eilish can sell out MSG and she can whisper into the mic, and like you can hear her in the rafters clear as a bell. And it's because of that tech and all that, there's just so many other colors to the voice that, in my opinion, we've not been able to access on Broadway for a while for whatever, maybe sort of lackadaisical reasons. It's been sort of like you have to do it to the back of the house. But that song has been a little protest mission on my part to just kind of experiment with all that, like those other colors. And I love the way it's coming out, and it gets bigger, as you know. There's moments to it.
Definitely.
Peaks and valleys, but it's really kind of astounding to me. I mean, besides everyone tells me when they see it that you can't hear a pin drop in there. That could be not farther from the truth, because I hear someone's alarm go off and these little, these coughs and snorts, and I'm most of the night when I'm singing that song, I'm actually using it as a little bit of instruction where I keep looking out exactly to where they are, and I'm like, it's a quiet thing, church mouse. It's kind of
That's
like
great.
it's a being. All energy is energy, even the bad stuff. So it actually ends up kind of working out.
For sure, for sure. You also, in addition to singing, you are involved in one of the biggest, maybe the biggest dance number of the whole shebang, when everyone is on that skyscraper set that lowers in,
Right.
which is such a great set piece. Was there a huge learning curve? Because I mean, Susan Stroman doesn't mess around with her choreography. And I'm just thinking of like moving from a rehearsal studio setting to finally getting that on its feet on stage on those beams. Yep. What was that process like?
Well, let's start from the very beginning, because beams be damned. I remember I got the script, and here's the very beginning. I didn't tap dance. I don't. I do this tap dance really well. I'd like if someone else would ask me to do it again, but that's come with, I can only say that because it's come with many, many months of very kind people spending time with me in a studio and working it out. But I read the script, and it said this beautiful homage to that old, I'm sure you picked up on that old photo of the guys working on the beam and having lunch, and inspiration struck for Stro, and it, of course, you've seen it to fruition. It's just the most glorious thing. And I was reading it, and I met with her, and she was like, do you tap? And I said, absolutely not. And she said, that's fine. That's fine. This always happens. Our lead guy, we'll just kind of, we'll have you be like, when the dance break starts, you'll kind of step off and you'll be like, go, go, go. And I was like, yeah, that's sure. And I started doing the mental math of like, where the fuck am I going to go? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like,
step up a skyscraper.
Am I going to go down? Like, there's another scaffolding down here, fellas. I just fell and I landed on my feet. So I was like, okay. I don't think logically that I would hate to see that as an audience member. So my biggest, when we did the workshop and everything, I was dedicated to I wanted to not hold the other Stro girls back. You know what I mean? The old the Stro girl is a business term at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was very, very determined to someday be called a Stro girl. So I gave it my all. And I would do private lessons, and then I also would moonlight over at the Broadway Dance Center. I would go stand in the back of classes with like a hat on. Not that anyone would notice me, but I just didn't want to be noticeable in how slow I was on the uptake. And yeah, so I would do that for like 6 months, and now we're doing it, and we're on top of that beam, and it's taken a lot of hard work and a lot of therapy, and but somehow we're doing it.
Well, you also have a great role in Poker Face. In episode 2, you have a great sinister role in that one. And what I noticed about that character Jed, as well as in New York, New York, is that you create these very specific, distinct physicalities for each character you have. They're very physically different from one another. What is your process like in terms of finding that physical self of a character like Jed?
Wow, thank you. Thank you for noticing that. I really was worried in the middle of that question that you were somehow segueing to be like, I see a lot of similarities between these two guys. What do you?
They're both killers.
I was actually talking about this morning, thinking about that same question. I was like, well, they both very much are in the pursuit of love. They really open-hearted, really wearing the heart on the sleeve, like they really are doing it. Very different methods. The physicality aspect, yeah, I was I've never really thought about it in that way before, except it just feels sort of the more and more I get older, and I keep having these existential crises about like what is it that we're doing, the more and more clear it comes, at least on how I can get there and how to do it. Because I used to be when I was really young, I used to just like, I needed to cry or something, and my body would really tense up, and I'm almost like try to force it out, and it wouldn't happen, and things like that. And so really, as I've gotten older, I've just realized that like, oh, I gotta fucking relax. Like that's just sort of how it works for me. And there's something in the relaxation has just been very like has really connected me to my body over the years, trying to get it actually standing up straight and right. And if you do so, then you can actually put on something else. And I mean, Jed specifically, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just that the whole thing was so quick, because it's like case of the week television. They're casting it the week before you go out there, and
They're each like little plays, really.
yes, right, very very quick little playlets, like 45-minute play festival kind of thing, and it was just so fast. Like I did a Zoom with casting. Next day I'm on a Zoom with Ryan, and like the great thing about it was that he was so supportive and about what I saw in it, and I think that's what we really connected on. That it was I think on paper it was a little obviously like moody, but I saw this like little incel kid as really relatable in some ways, and on Zoom you can't really see the physicality, but I got there and he was just so encouraging of that. The very first scene we shot just told me the whole thing was like, there's the scene where I come and see her in the gas station. I've already killed the guy, spoiler. And she is kind of stalking things and is very much like a little more bereft about she's mourning him. And I come in and I'm on a completely different track where obviously I've done this whole thing with my heart on my sleeve to pursue her and say like, would you want to go away with me? And it's so out of touch with her that and it's this great long setup where you kind of you can see me, and it's sort of it's her in the foreground, and Rack's focus right back at the end of the aisle. And he was just so encouraging about the whole thing that I just slunk into the thing to be like, hey, and to say, hey, what's up? And from then off, it was just kind of like off to the races with, I mean, he's so brilliant, like I've worked with so many great people and who are extraordinary with vision, but he is a bona fide auteur. So like I've been really pining after that experience, and because his worlds that he creates the camera has its own character perspective as well. There's just such a freedom about how you fit into that character of the camera with him. It's such a style thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. The physicality aspect was so big for that. And then, not to be so long-winded about it, but with New York, New York, I don't know. I just wanted that. The whole thing on paper just felt so cinematic to me and so sweeping. And it was like a capital R romance, like they don't make anymore, And so I wanted it to be like, if someone could tell me or I could tell them what I really thought it was, I wanted it to be somehow both Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye in White Christmas. Some scenes more the other. And so I wanted that Jimmy Stewart, Danny Kaye sort of like always kind of gliding, but always about to fall over at the same time. And mainly because I just wanted that to be the experience. I wanted it to feel like something you knew, some guy that you definitely knew. And especially those Titanic figures, at least in my mind, they live in this like Titanic sort of fashion, these in Technicolor, these guys, from the old days that just make my heart sing. So like, I just wanted to see if I could capture that. And I'm glad you noticed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's fantastic job in both of these. So thanks for chatting with me. If you're out there watching, check out New York, New York on Broadway now and Poker Face, both great. And stay subscribed to Gold Derby. Keep up with us the rest of this season. Thanks, Colton.
Thank you, Sam.